Sa video ito, atin pong pag-uusapan kung paano po ba at kung kailan ginagamit ang deductive reasoning. Tara! A deductive reasoning is the process of showing that certain statements follow logically from agreed assumptions and proven facts. Ano po bang ibig sabihin ng agreed assumption? Ito po yung napagkasunduan na maaaring maging solusyon sa isang problem. At ito po ay may batayan na kanilang pinag-uusapan. Sa pangkalahatan, pag sinabi po nating deductive reasoning, it is came from the general statement down to specific. In deductive reasoning, meron tayong dalawang laws to follow. The first law is the law of detachment, and the second law is the law of syllogism. Sa first law, there is if P, then Q. Remember that if P, then Q is a conditional statement. Dapat daw, siya po is true. Then, kung true yung atin pong conditional statement, dapat yung kanyang hypothesis, which is the P, must also be true, and at the same time, yung kanyang conclusion must also be true. Whereas sa law of syllogism, we have here, if P, then Q, and Q, then R are true. So, we have here, then P, then R is also true. Sa makatuwid, any given statement pagdating sa law of syllogism must always be true to give us or to apply the law of syllogisms. Let's have example. In this example, we're going to use the law of detachment to determine whether a valid conclusion can be reached from each set of statements. Ibig lang sabihin nun, aalamin po natin kung ang magiging conclusion natin sa given statements must be valid or must be true. So let's find out. Let's have example number 1. For example number 1, we have, if you are a junior high school, then you study geometry. Ibig sabihin nun, ito pong statement na to, hanggang dito sa part na to, ay tinatawag po nating conditional statement. Tatandaan na ang conditional statement, according to the law of detachment, must be true so that ang atin pong magiging conclusion ay magiging true din po. Then, we have here another statement, you are a junior high school student. So, bago po natin sagutan yan, to have our solution, of course, we need to identify the hypothesis and the conclusion. In this given example, our hypothesis is you are a junior student. So, ito po ang ating maging hypothesis, yung kanyang P. Then, ang kanyang conclusion, you study geometry. Ito pong hypothesis at saka conclusion ay nagmula sa atin pong conditional statement. Then, to have now your conclusion, since doon sa statement ay given yung ating conditional statement at ibinigay niya yung kanyang hypothesis, this is the hypothesis, our task is to find the conclusion. Ang sabi niya sa law of detachment, kung ang ating pong conditional statement is true, then ang ating hypothesis is also true, then our conclusion must also be true. And therefore, to conclude, gagamit po tayo ng mathematical statement which are true by using the law of detachment. So, we therefore conclude that if you are a junior high school, then you must study geometry. And that is true. Let us recall. So, let's find out here. Ang ating pong law of detachment, tatanda natin, it is a form of deductive reasoning which states that if our conditional statement is true, ito po yun, ang ating conditional statement is true, then, ang ating P is also true, P is our hypothesis, is also true, then our Q must also be true statement. So this is our conditional. This is true. Our hypothesis is also true. This is our hypothesis. And therefore, ang atin pong magiging conclusion must also be a true statement. Ganun lamang po kadali. Let's have example number 2. Again, we are going to use the law of detachment to determine whether a valid conclusion can be reached from its set of statements. Let's take the example number 2. If two lines are parallel, then they have no common points. This is our conditional statement. And we must identify that this conditional statement must be true. Then, after na inilagay niya ang kanyang conditional statement, we have the next statement which is the hypothesis. Ang hypothesis po natin is two lines are parallel. So since ang atin pong hypothesis is true, and our conditional statement is also true, and therefore, ang atin pong magiging conclusion must also be true. So to solve for that, we need our P and Q represented by our statement. Our P, or the hypothesis, is your 2 points or 2 lines are parallel. And your Q, they have no common points. So our Q, remember, that is our conclusion in the given conditional statement. To conclude, we have now, since the mathematical statement are true, ito po ang sinasabi niya. We have here, the mathematical statement is true. Yes, the law of detachment to conclude Q, that is, they have no common endpoints. So, pag true po ang atin pong mathematical statement, and ang atin pong hypothesis is also true, you can conclude that our Q, or our conclusion, must also be true. And therefore, itong kanyang conclusion, which is Q, is your final answer, which they have no common points. Kaya lang, tika lang. Paano po ba yon? Remember that doon sa arguments natin na ginagawa po natin, ang atin pong conditional statement must be true, our hypothesis must be true, and that is right, at ang atin pong conclusion must be true. Kaya lang, paano po ba natin nalalaman kung tama ang ating pong conditional statement and our conclusion? So, madali lamang po yun. Dapat meron po tayong knowledge sa atin pong problem. So, kung may knowledge po tayo sa ating problem, and therefore, we can immediately identify that the given conditional statement is true or false. Dito po, kung titingnan natin, we have, if two lines are parallel, we have the word parallel. That is parallel lines. Kung ang dalawang line daw po ay parallel, then they have no common points. Ano nga po ba ang itsura ng parallel lines? To give us an idea, pag sinabi po natin parallel lines, those are lines that do not intersect at all times. And therefore, kung maglalagay po ako dito ng dalawang line, ito po yun. This is, pagpalagay natin, this is the parallel line. Straight line po ang parallel line po natin. Ang number one characteristic ng isang parallel line, those are lines that do not intersect at all times. Siyempre, kung wala po silang point of intersection, wala rin pong common point sila sa isa't isa. Pagpalagay natin, this is parallel line L, and this is parallel line M. So, pag in-extend ko po yung line papunta sa kabila, infinitely, pag sinabi natin ng infinitely, ng tuloy-tuloy, ng walang hangganan, hanggang dito. At pag in-extend ko rin po itong line na ito, at saka ito, hinding-hindi po sila magkakaroon ng pagsasalubong. Kung hindi po sila magsasalubong, normal po yon, wala po silang magiging common point of intersection. Kaya po, yung atin pong conditional statement is true. Since ang ating conditional statement is true, ang mangyayari, yung kanilang hypothesis must be true. Ito po yun. At ang kanilang conclusion must also be true. Pag ang atin pong conditional statement is true. Doon po sa law of detachment. And therefore, ang ating magiging conclusion is also true. You get it? Let's have example number 3. Still, we're going to use the law of detachment to determine whether a valid conclusion can be reached from each set of statements. Let's have sample number 3. Our example is 6 plus 8 is equals to 8 plus 6. That is your first statement. Then we have A plus B is equals to B plus A. This is your hypothesis. Then we have 5 plus 3 is equals to 3 plus 5. This is your conclusion. This is your P, tatandaan. Pag may then, that is your Q. Ano itong statement na isa? And that would be the other part of your statement, that is your R. So, tatandaan, now our statement is being represented by a conclusion and a hypothesis of this given problem. So, to solve for that, kung magsasatisfy ba tayo, kung ma-reach out po ba natin yung kanilang sets of statement into true conclusion, let's find out. So, we're going to let P, Q, and R represent as the statements. So, yung P natin is represented by the hypothesis, tulad ng nasabi ko kanina. Yung Q natin is represented by the conclusion. Yung R po natin is represented by another statement. Yun po yung kanyang first statement. Dito sinasabi niya na there is no valid conclusion. While the statements are true, the law of detachment is not applicable. So, kung mapapansin kasi natin, tama naman lahat ang kanilang statement. Kaya lang, hindi po natin pwedeng i-apply yung kanilang law of detachment kahit na true ang kanilang statement dito kasi po we have 3 sets of statements. So, if P, then Q, this is the conditional. This is true. Yung R is also true. Anong conclusion natin? Do we have a conclusion? Wala. Kaya hindi po natin magagamit yung kanyang possible laws na atin pong gagamitin. So that's it. Bago tayo magpatuloy sa next example, kanina ang ginamit natin ay ang law of detachment. Dito, sa next example natin, ang gagamitin naman po natin ay ang tinatawag na law of syllogism. Ano po ba ang law of syllogism? Ano po ang kanyang kahulugan? So we have here, the law of syllogism is a form of deductive reasoning which states that if P, then Q, and Q, then R are true. Ang ibig sabihin nun, yung first statement must be true. Kung tama ang first statement natin, ganun din po ang kanyang magiging second statement. Therefore, yung P, then Q must be true. The second statement, which is Q, then R, is also true. Kung true po silang dalawa, normal po yun na ang kanyang magiging answer must also be true. Kung mapapansin po natin, nagkaroon po tayo dito ng double conclusion. Let's find out. We have here, parehas po sila may Q. So, ang matitira po natin, we have, therefore, ang P, then R must also be true. Let's have an example. For sample number 1, by using the hypothetical syllogism, we're going to determine whether a valid conclusion can reach out from each set of statements. Let's have this example. If an angle is obtuse, then it measures 128 degrees. So that is true. Bakit kaya? Maya-maya malalaman po natin. So, agad-agad, true ang ating sagot dyan. Then, the next statement, if an angle measures 128 degrees, then it measures between 90 and 180 degrees. So, in this given example, meron tayong tatlong sets of statements. We have the P, which is the hypothesis. We have the Q, which is the conclusion, and R, which is our another statement. So in this given example, ang atin pong hypothesis is an angle is obtuse. Ito po ang ating magiging hypothesis. Ang atin pong conclusion, it measures 90 degrees. Saan nanggaling? Mula dito sa conditional statement. Then, meron kasi dito tayong isang word na kung saan kinuha doon sa conclusion at saka sa hypothesis. That is, if an angle measures 128 degrees, then it measures between 90 and 180 degrees. So, yung concept, yung pinanggalingan ng statement number 3 ay nagmula sa statement number 1. Bakit bigla tayong nagkaroon dito ng in between 90 degrees and 180 degrees? So, ito po ang ating magiging R. It measures between 90 and 180 degrees. Again, bago natin sagutan yan, kasi hindi naman natin malalaman po kung true or false without the knowledge ng degree measures ng isang angle. Ano po ba ang ibig sabihin ng obtuse angle? So, pag sinabi po natin obtuse angle, it is an angle that measures greater than 90 but less than 180 degrees. Or, it is in between 90 degrees and 180 degrees. So, ito po is nasa pagitan ng 90 degrees and we have here 180 degrees. So, nasa pagitan po nun. Ano po ba yung given natin? Ang given po kasi natin is 128. Ang 128 ay makikita po natin sa pagitan ng 90 at saka 180. Tatandaan na pag ganito ang angle natin, ang tawag po natin sa kanya is an obtuse angle. So, lahat ng obtuse angle, ang kanilang measure must be in between 90 and 180 degrees. Or pwede rin po, that is 90, that is greater than 90, but less than 180 degrees. So, it is greater than 90, but less than 180 degrees. Pero mas madali natin ma-identify kung ang ating titingnan ay it should be in between 90 and 180 degrees. And therefore, yung unang statement natin is true, which is your P, or your conditional statement. Then, we have here, if an angle measures 128 degrees, then it measures between 90 and 180 degrees. It is also true. Kasi nga po, yung 128 degrees ay nasa pagitan ng 90 and 180 degrees. Remember that an obtuse angle measures in between 90 and 180 degrees. And therefore, 180 is an obtuse angle. So, we have here, for our conclusion, we can say that we have, if an angle is obtuse, then it measures between 90 and 180 degrees. Ibig sabihin nun, ito na po ang ating magiging last conclusion doon po sa ating given conditional statement na kung saan na-provide po natin as our second statement, which is our R. So, kung titingnan natin, tandaan na ang obtuse angle measures between 90 and 180 degrees. Ang argument po natin, this is true, this is also true, and therefore, it is also true. Let's take example number 2. If a symbol of a substance is H2O, then it is water. Di po ba alam naman po natin na ang symbol ng water in a substance ay H2O. Therefore, true po ito. Next statement. If the symbol of substance is H2O, then it has hydrogen. Yung first statement is true. Yung second statement is also true. Bakit po? Yung H dito stand for hydrogen, yung O naman po stand for oxygen. Ang ibig sabihin noon, meron tayong dalawang hydrogen at meron tayong isang oxygen. So, nung sinabi niya sa second statement na if the symbol of a substance is H2O, ibig sabihin noon, meron yung kasamang hydrogen. Pero hindi niya sinabi kung ilang hydrogen po ba ang kasama. Basta't ang mahalaga, meron daw po yan, hydrogen. At ang hydrogen na tinutukoy niya, yun po yung letter H na symbol na makikita po natin sa periodic table of elements sa chemistry subject. So, let's solve the problem. First, we have to represent our problem by P, Q, and R as our statements. So, ang ating pong P, which is our hypothesis, is the symbol of a substance is H2O. So, dito po, ang symbol ng substance is H2O. And that is water. Then, our conclusion, which is, we have here, it is a water. Tama. Kung ang symbol ng isang substance is H2O, and that is a water. So, true po tayo. Then, we have here, for our next statement, it has hydrogen. Ang water naman po talaga merong hydrogen. Kaya lang hindi naman in-identify kung ilang hydrogen po ang kailangan to have our water composition. So, ang mathematical statement natin is, if P, then Q is true. Then Q and R is also true. Kaya lang, ang sabi niya, there is no valid conclusion. While the statements are true, the law of hypothetical syllogism is not applicable. Kasi nga po, hindi niya na-determine kung ano po bang hydrogen ang tinutukoy niya. Ilan po ba yan? So, hindi natukoy, hindi na ibigay ng maayos yung kanyang paliwanag. Kaya hindi po natin maia-apply yung hypothetical syllogism to have our conclusion. Although, the given statements are all true.